What's up, everyone? George, the Disney Italiano, coming to you with another Hollow Gelato video. Today, I got my good friend here, Mr. Theme Park Conductor, the caboose master himself, joining me for a plethora of many different topics involving the theme park industry. And we got a lot to dive into today. But before we do, Conductor, thank you so much for joining me on Hollow Gelato. It's always great to have you on. And let everyone know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. And it's always a great time being on Hotto Gelato with the one and only unique George the Disney Italiano. But like George says, you can find me on YouTube and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on Instagram at theme_park_conductor. You can also find me on X at Theme Conductor. You can find me on Theme Park, or you can find me on TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1. And you can find me every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we just had George the Disney Italiano from Hollow Gelato, Orange Grove 55, and so many other guests as we break down Universal, Disney, HHN, the Halloween season, and the up-and-coming Christmas season, and theme park rumors like we like talking about so much. But it's always a great time. Come and join.
Absolutely. And I have to say, folks, when Conductor calls me unique, it truly is exactly what it is because I am a horse of a different color. So there's only one of me, folks. I'm limited edition. You will never find another Italiano like me.
Priceless.
But so I thought we'd start off today, Conductor, kind of starting on the lighter side of things, more so gearing towards the studio part of the company before we move into the theme parks, because essentially the studio and the theme parks kind of go hand in hand. The studio needs the theme parks need the studio. Now, more recently, Disney has released that the live action version of Tangled that was in thoughts and it was canceled is
Yeah.
now back up to be produced by the Walt Disney Studios, and they're eyeing Scarlett Johansson as possibly being cast for Mother Gothel.
Yeah.
Um, and then I believe it was like yesterday or the day before they announced that there was going to be a new Lion King, uh, quote unquote, live action uh,
Yeah.
movie, whether it's a sequel from uh the original Lion King or if it's a sequel from uh Mufasa. Uh I don't really know, honestly, nor do I really care.
Yeah.
uh, but I kind of thought Disney was going out of the realm of doing these live action reboots, but based off of them bringing back the rumored Tangled live action and now a sequel to The Lion King again, what is your thought process on Disney making these decisions?
Well, okay, so this scares me in a way, and it's not something that I easily say those term of phrases, because when you look at the live action Snow White, which is the perfect example for this topic, they decided to take a classic Disney princess that was part of the original Disney company from when it started, and they tried their best to remake it, and it just turned out very, very bad. And it was a bad it was a bad thing to do in the first place. And they don't have the greatest track record on remakes. So I'm actually surprised they decided to go down this route. And my biggest question is, who's making these decisions? Is it Dana Walden? Is it Bob Iger? Is it I'm kind of curious who's making these decisions. The reason why is, Disney, at least on their movie side of things, they're not in the greatest position. I have to say, with Fantastic Four, not doing as they wanted it to. Um, you look at Tron Ares, not doing great at all. And again, like I referenced the remake of Snow White, which again now is a huge flop. It drives me kind of crazy. They make these bad decisions, and then they stop for a little bit, and then they go back to them. It's almost like, why you didn't learn the first time when you
It's
did.
like when someone's, like, addicted to something and they
Yes.
come back and they do good, but then they go right back into their bad habits. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what they're doing, and I feel like it was like a lightning in a bottle at the time when it was working. For instance, like the live action Cinderella, the live
Yes.
action Jungle Book, the live action Beauty and the Beast, the live action Lion King, the live action, if you can call it the Lion King, and the live action Aladdin. They were all phenomenal money makers at the
Sure.
box office. But I felt like it was at a time where people were hyped to see, "Oh, I wanna see this my animated classic fairy tale come to life in live action format." But once it was over, once the movie was out in theaters and it came out at the time of DVD and Blu-ray and streaming, people lost interest in it.
It did.
It's like once it peaked out of the theaters, no one does anyone ever talk about the live action Beauty and the Beast anymore?
No.
No. Does anyone talk about the live action Aladdin anymore with Will Smith? No, no one talks about it. Now, I can somewhat understand Disney's decision for them doing the live action Moana, because right now, Moana is a hot ticket franchise right now.
Yes.
So I can see Disney kind of running with it. Now, am I still satisfied and happy that they're doing it? No, I'd rather just keep it as an animated classic. I will say though, I am glad that they got Dwayne the Rock Johnson to reprise his role as Maui. And Ali E. Cravalho, who does the voice of Moana, she is executive producer um, on the film. So that's good at least. But yeah, I just, when they say that, Tangled is coming as a live action and they're doing another sequel for The Lion King, it just feels like it's an easy way for a cash grab. And I feel like that's Disney's MO right now with the studio. It's all live action reboots and sequels. It's like very far in between do we get something original? And I feel like when we do get something original, it's not up to par because everybody's time and energy is put into these films that they know automatically work rather than put some extra heart and soul and TLC into these original movies. And that's why it'll be kind of rough and rocky moving forward. But I think if Disney cuts the umbilical cord on these live action reboots and these sequels and just focus on original content, people would start to then, okay, we're getting back into that swing because they could just put all their attention into the original films. But what say you?
So I can't agree more. And I reiterate, it's such a bad decision. It's almost like a cheap option where what they're doing by remaking a lot of these classic, vault. I'm going to say movie vault, Disney movies. It's kind of unnecessary. It's like they're they're um they're basically, in a way, they're kind of, how can I put it? They're kind of like, they don't know how to create, new content that's not based off of original IP, and that's kind of disappointing to me. In a way, it's like they almost, I wouldn't say they don't care, but it's concerning that they would destroy, and I don't use that word lightly either, but they would destroy classic IP movies from the Disney vault, remake them, and then they flop.
Mhm.
It's almost like a disservice, and I don't
Totally
like
agree.
seeing that. I really do not.
Eh,
So,
oh yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say, you know, going forward, I would like to see them, you know, I would like them to actually create new IPs, new stories, new magic in a way, and stop reusing old IPs from the Disney Vault just to satisfy people. You know,
Hmm.
I rather them wait years to release something original than destroy what they've already created. You know what I mean? By remakes. It screams desperation.
Oh, it really does. And for an example too, and folks, for all of you that are watching, this is going to be a show more so dedicated to the theme parks, and you're wondering, Italiano, so why are you bringing up the studio? Well, here is why. This is where it links back to the theme parks. For instance, Disney has a new upcoming animated film that's going to be released in 2026 titled Hexed, which is going to be, I believe, sometime in November. And it's more so like a kind of looks like a ghoulish Halloween type of movie. But my concern with this is the description of it's about a young boy and his type A mom. So
Yeah.
see right there, they're saying they're his type A mom. So they're labeling his mom as like this more current um uh, trendy kind of spoken kind of thing. It's not going to be a musical. They did say there's going to be an original villain, but does that mean that we're going to also get an original villain death, or are they going to? Well, obviously they can't sing them to death because it's not going to be a musical. So getting to my point on the theme parks is if this movie doesn't do well, this could have been a great opportunity for Disney that they could have had another kind of Halloween based movie to go up with The Nightmare Before Christmas during the Halloween season. But if this movie flops, which I hope it doesn't, I want it to succeed. But if it flops, we're stuck with another dead end because Disney is not going to utilize an IP in the parks if the movie doesn't do well at the box office, if it doesn't bring in the dough. So why are they kind of, in a word, handicapping themselves with the studio if it's not going to even progress into the theme parks?
Well, see, that's again, that's, and I'm going to go off subject here, but that's kind of how I feel about our Tomorrowland. That's why it keeps getting passed up year after year for some type of massive remodel because they don't know what to do with it. And it kind of goes, like you said at the very beginning, between the studio and the theme parks, they go hand in hand. And like I said, this screams desperation. They don't know what, new IPs they can bring. And like you said, the new one that they're coming out with, hopefully it doesn't flop. I would love to see a succeeding animated movie from Disney, you know, to do well. Because think about it, in Walt Disney World at Magic Kingdom, they're building, a whole villains land based off
Mhm.
Disney villains. So if this does incredibly well, we could see, IP incorporated into that villains land. So I would love to see that.
Do
But
you do you think that's why we're not going to get a lot of information on Villains Land right off the bat, and they're kind of stalling in a sense because once Hex comes out, which by the way, I love the title. It
oh, it's
tells a
perfect.
lot of personality and it has me interested in the storyline and the character arc and everything. But based off even the title, it sounds like they could really come up with a kick-ass good villain and a
Yeah.
good villain subplot. Could they be waiting to see how well the movie does? So whatever this new villain is, they might be able to incorporate him or her into the land itself.
It's more than possible. Um, my see, it's a catch 22 because they could do it that way, or what they could do, at least out here in Disneyland, which I've seen it time and time again, the Hollywood backlot where eventually Avatar's going. I've seen, you know, IP characters from new Disney movies that get released in theaters, and are kind of just all mixed into that land for just, meet and greets. So maybe they test their waters there. But again, it all comes down to, is the movie Hex going to be original enough, and is it going to attract the revenue they want out of it to justify incorporating that IP into the parks, or aka the villain's land going in the Magic Kingdom? That's the question I have, because they're going to be pouring hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into this land, and the last thing I want to see is them incorporating IP villains into this land that don't have a good enough backstory, and their movie just didn't do well. And again, that's why I reference back to Tomorrowland, because there was so much hype on Fantastic Four, doing so well, that Fantastic Four was going to be a reskin, or
Mm.
Tomorrowland was going to be a reskin based off Fantastic Four.
And
And
probably done in Florida for Tomorrowland, it was gonna be for Tron,
yep,
but both movies didn't do. I mean, I still enjoyed Fantastic Four: First Steps, Tron, not so much,
yeah,
but I think I mentioned this on at the time of this recording, yesterday's, or the day before live that I did with all of you guys, and my thing is, I feel like when you utilize the subject of tomorrow, or AKA future,
yeah,
futuristic vibes, futuristic storyline, futuristic characters like Fantastic Four, like Tron, it kind of holds the notion, because in today's time era, technology is moving so fast with robotics, I'm sorry, not AI, AR, VR, everything is just moving at a rapid pace, and we incorporate it in our everyday lives. We do it when we do our content. We do it when we're on our phones, when we're working. It's nothing new to us. So when we watch a movie, there's no escapism,
no,
because it's nothing new that we're not dealing with now. And I feel like that's why Tomorrowland really is a very outdated concept. It worked with Walt because he was looking into the future. Well, the future is now, and it keeps on progressing.
yeah.
So I feel like they need to kind of reroute and change the outlook of what Tomorrowland could be. Maybe do something more of discovery.
Yeah, see, I kind of like that name, because we've all talked about it on all of our channels, even Orange Grove 55's channel, where even with DCA, Disney California Adventure, and both you and Orange Grove 55 came up with the name Disney Cinematic Adventure, because the California, aspect of that park is just kind of just dying off. And there's a lot of IP base going into that park. So cinematic instead of California would be it would make more sense than leaving it California. Now, with Tomorrowland, the thing that I've seen, especially in Walt Disney World, with Epcot, early on with the pavilions and whatnot, at one point or another, and they still kind of do it a little bit on certain attractions. A lot of attractions, including our Autopia that's sponsored by Honda, you know, at one point they had a lot of attractions, sponsored by some type of company. And that, to me, if they reincorporated that idea into both the West Coast and East Coast, but I kind of feel like the East Coast is better off than the West Coast right now for Tomorrowland. They can go back to that concept and build these attractions, whatever it might be, based off today's technology, with AI, with robots, with just everything that you happen to mention with today's technology, and kind of have different attractions sponsored by these companies. I think if they went that route, and it wasn't just a single IP base, the name Tomorrowland would be justified, and it
Mhm.
wouldn't be a dead name.
See, and to Orange Grove's credit, from the very beginning, this is why I feel like, and a lot of people would, I agree with him, but would disagree with us, is because he said to place Avatar where Tomorrowland was. Again, still keep Space Mountain. You
Oh,
still
sure.
keep a little piece of it of Tomorrowland, but you don't need a significant chunk where you could have like a mini land that dedicates to space. And
Definitely.
then it transitions because you from Earth, you have to go into space, into Pandora. You can then transition into Pandora because, and to quote him, it falls in between that fine line of futuristic and fantastical, which it would be right in between where Tomorrowland currently resides at Disneyland and Fantasyland.
Yeah.
You get rid of the subs, you unkink the monorail track, um, you get rid of Autopia. I know that's a hot take, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, and you get rid of the motorboat cruise area. You still keep the water area because Pandora does have a lot of lush, organic nature qualities to it. So it doesn't block out any canals. You keep the water part, but you just build the land around it.
Exactly. But see, like I said on Conductor Sunday live stream when I had you, OG, and Tommy, the one thing I mentioned was when I happened to mention, Pandora going into the Hollywood backlot, just because Disney came out and said it's going in that area doesn't mean something can't change.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think Orange Grove, he happened to mention, well, it's already set in stone, it's done, it's over with. I'm like, well, I don't know if I 100% agree with it. Like, I would say 95% of what he said I agree with, but there's always that 5%. I'm like, well, just because someone says something and they make it so serious and permanent doesn't mean last minute they can't change it.
I hear you on that because it's very true. Because when I went to the first D23 Expo back in 2009, and they had the Parks panel, and at the time, Parks chairman Jay Rizzullo announced the big Fantasyland expansion at
Yeah,
Magic Kingdom, it was a lot of princess meet and greets.
sure.
There was Cinderella's French chateau. There was the Woodland Cottage for Sleeping Beauty. That was all announced at D23. They have, you could search it. They have concept art for it. It was out. Tom Staggs at the time, after the fact that Jay Rizzullo was out and Tom Staggs came in as Parks chairman, he said, "This is all nice, but I have two young boys. They're not interested in a bunch of meet and greets with the princesses." And that's where last minute they were already conducting research and development on the swinging bucket seats that they decided to implement the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And that came out of nowhere.
Yeah. See, it's funny you mention that because Bricky did it, and I love Bricky. He's
Yes.
such an awesome
Shout
guy.
out to Bricky. Huge
Yeah.
fan of his, great content, and a great friend of all of ours.
Oh, definitely. And he was very active on Conductor Sunday live stream in the chat. So I give him I give him kudos. But he did a video, what, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and he was talking about where the former ESPN building is, where Rainforest Cafe, well, the former Rainforest Cafe building sits today in downtown Disney. There was supposed to be this humongous, I mean humongous hotel. Like, I
Mhm.
mean huge. And um you know, he was saying with the deals that were already set in place with between Disney and Anaheim, and then a contractor that they hired to build this resort, well, not resort, but hotel resort, because it was, again, it was humongous. They were known for building the hotels in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
So everything was pretty much done and dusted. The ink was barely drying on the deal, and they were bringing bulldozers, construction vehicles, literally in transit to be put on site to start this thing.
They
And
closed all that stuff down. They closed the rainforest. They closed AMC. They
yep,
closed what the hell was the other one? That
yes,
they
ESPN.
ESPN. They were gone. They literally canceled it the day
Wow.
of.
Of
They were on their way to
yeah,
start it, and it literally it ended right there and then. So yes, I do understand OG's point with it, and
sure.
there is a big chance it'll still go through, but time has shown us that anything can change at any given time last minute. Now, again, Disney did announce, obviously Monsters Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue is going away. They say for Avatar, Mike and Sully to the Rescue is going to be going regardless. But
Exactly.
it may not necessarily be to Avatar. If James Cameron says, you know what, to the Imagineers, this isn't going to work. I
Yeah.
am not happy with this. They have to come up with a plan B. And I think that's why they didn't give us any like set in stone information yet on Avatar. We still don't know anything about the e-ticket, only that it's a boat ride. We know no restaurants, no shops. We don't even know what this land is going to be called. Is it going to be
Exactly.
called Pandora? Is it going to be called Avatar, the World of Panda? What is it going to be called? And I think that's Disney covering their own ass in case they need to utilize a plan B. Now, I'm not saying Avatar isn't going into the Disneyland Resort. I'm not saying that Avatar isn't going into DCA, but there's could be a strong chance it could move over to the Simba lot and something else might go in Hollywoodland that eventually it will remove Mike and Sully to the rescue.
Yeah, and 100%. And we can sit here and be here for hours and speculate what different IPs they could put there. They can, you know,
I think it would be Zootopia.
that's
I
what
think
I was thinking. To
I
tie
think
in the
yeah,
Hollywood theme.
yeah. I think honestly, especially with Zootopia 2 coming out, and we
Yes.
know that's going to do bangers at the box office. They wouldn't really have to do too much. They could keep it a metropolitan rural street that moves into a cityscape. Yeah, they did get rid of the red car trolley. They could have reskinned that, but I think honestly there was just a lot of maintenance and a lot of technical issues I think they had to deal with that. Plus, they wouldn't really have to do anything with the monorail.
No, that's what I mean.
So I think honestly, if something was to be their plan B would be Zootopia.
Exactly. And to go back on your point about that, monsters, um I can't agree with you more that it was going to close anyway. The reason why I say that with well, now they finally gave it a name, at least a rumored name,
Yes.
Monstropolis, going into Hollywood studios, you know, the save money and cut cost, they and I commend Disney for this, so I'm not going to shoot them down for this one. They're saving money by closing an attraction and salvaging animatronics, maybe even some set pieces from that attraction to incorporate in the Monstropolis. What
Mhm.
what a
Oh,
way to cross
absolutely.
utilize.
Yeah, why demolish something when it could be utilized for, something else? If it still has, extra time to be used, might as well utilize it. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because that's a great segue into our next topic. This is courtesy of the one, the only Mr. Scott Gustin. He posted this on October 10th. And it says, starting today, a new display inside Walt Disney Presents at Disney's Hollywood Studios will feature assets from 3 upcoming Walt Disney Imagineering projects. And this is where it brought up the hint that it may be titled Monstropolis, because it says Monstropolis, Tropical Americas, and Piston Peak National Park. Which pretty much we already knew Tropical Americas, that was the name for Animal Kingdom, and Piston Peak was going to be the Cars themed area. But I love how they added National Park to it. It's not like you could just shorthand it and say Piston Peak, but they actually gave a full title, Piston Peak National Park. But they added Monstropolis to this, and I like that. I think honestly that's a great title. I don't really like these long, like exaggerating titles. Like even though I love Avatar at Animal Kingdom,
Yeah,
like Pandora, the world of Avatar. Well, we know it's part of Avatar. Just call it Pandora. We
exactly.
don't need to, here say like it's the world of Avatar. Um, so rather than say Monsters Inc. land or Monstropolis, the world of Monsters Inc., like just call it what it is. It's Monstropolis.
See, and again, I find it really funny, with Piston Peak, right?
Mhm.
With the whole national park thing. I'm sorry, but I I have to speak my mind. Doesn't national park mean that? Doesn't that kind of scream to you California theming in a way, or is it
When
just
they
me?
add national park, yeah, it does give off the vibe of like for California. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't know if you were part of the conversation, but it was on, I believe, on Orange Grove 55 when I think I asked OG this. Could they potentially down the road now? They already have Cars Land in DCA.
Yeah,
Close by, they have Grizzly Peak. It's wilderness. It ties into the Grand Californian. Depending on how well this Cars area does at Magic Kingdom, could that give leadway to the Imagineers to retheme Grizzly Peak? Because it's going to be the only land at DCA that's really not tied to an IP. Could they potentially make a West Coast version of Piston Peak, replacing Grizzly Peak, and tie it into the IP of Cars, and it's adjacent right to Radiator Springs?
it, you know what? It's very well possible because if you think about it, Redwood Creek Forest doesn't have an IP. Basically, it's kind of like a hangout, relax spot, and then they use it for treat trails during the Halloween season. And then they use it again for meeting Santa and whatnot. So I can easily see that. That would be awesome if they were able to do that. Now, will they do that? Only time will tell. Because, like you said, you know, Bob Iger came out. What was it, George? Maybe 2 years ago, maybe even close to 3 years ago, and he said on either it was a video that the Walt Disney Company put out, or he said it on CNBC or one of those channels. He clearly said any future expansions to our theme parks will result in IP based theming. There will be no more non IP based theming for any new expansions coming to our parks.
Yeah, I think that's the route that Disney is moving forward. Now, there could be a chance that that may retract depending on who gets in the new CEO spot and how their outlook is on the parks. And
Sure.
right now, our front runner is Josh D'Amaro, and he's kind of taking his P's and Q's from Iger. So if he becomes CEO, the parks are probably going to be very heavy driven in IP. And I think honestly, if he becomes CEO, I think Grizzly Peak would be on the chopping block much sooner than later.
Yeah. I I personally think so. And the one thing I want to ask you, since they have a Walt Disney Presents and they're, presenting all these showcases of the different areas they're expanding for the Walt Disney World between multiple parks. I have to be honest with you, since we lost the Blue Sky Cellar out here
I
at
miss that.
DC.
I miss that so much. I loved going into that Blue Sky Cellar where they were showcasing World of Color, Cars Land, Buena Vista Street when they
Yeah.
were working on the DCA 2.0. I really missed that. But so sorry, I cut you off. But go
Oh
ahead.
no. Oh no no. No. So with Blue Sky Cellar gone and it lost to DVC, which I I
I think
don't.
everything is getting like lost in DVC.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I said, you know what? Why can't Disney? Why can't they find a vacant spot to reintroduce the Blue Sky Cellar in a way? Who cares if it's in DCA or who cares if it's in Disneyland? If it's in Disneyland, God, how many options do you need in Tomorrowland? They got enough vacant space, especially Star Wars Launch Bay. You imagine if they open that back up and they have a whole atrium where you can walk in there and you see all the displays, kind of like what this Walt Disney Presents thing is, where you walk in and they have all the displays for all the new things coming for Disneyland Forward and future things. Like they can almost do like a grand reveal, like let's say like D23, okay, because you, me, and OG55 plan on going this
Mhm.
next coming year in August, and
Fingers
let's see,
crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed. And let's say they announce a couple more things that are going to be part of Disneyland Forward that wasn't part of the last D23.
Mhm.
I think the Star Wars launch bay would be big enough to offer the available real estate to showcase all this. Why they won't use that building and stuff for a little puny meet and greet with Darth Vader, which I still don't agree with. He needs to be in Galaxy's Edge. Second of all, they have a little, barely, probably, I would have to say, probably maybe 3 times as big as my bedroom where my studio is, of space for DVC, and then the rest of it just sits abandoned. It's like, why not utilize it for something? The hell are we doing?
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like that they're kind of putting him there, Darth Vader, that is, at the launch bay, again, just to have an excuse, just to put him somewhere, so they can avoid putting him in Galaxy's Edge to not disrupt their precious timeline. And I think that is a horrible decision. I hope in time that they find a way to maneuver and incorporate all Star Wars IP into Galaxy's Edge. That's the whole point why I thought that they made Galaxy's Edge in the first place.
Yeah.
But apparently right now it's not. Um, I do know that they just started filing the permits to um, restructure the Star Cruiser down in Florida for the offices for WDI. That recently just went out. And
Well,
so my point really quick, the Star Wars launch bay, honestly, I would prefer honestly a new set of bathrooms with fancy bidets before keeping it the Star Wars launch bay.
I couldn't agree with you more, for real, because that whole building is such a waste of space. And shout out to bidets everywhere, by the way.
Yes.
No, but no, that footprint is such a waste of space. But then again, like I said at the very beginning when we're talking about the studio stuff, you know, again, it kind of ties back to what we're saying. They kind of just let Tomorrowland just sit abandoned, basically, or 3/4 of the way abandoned, because they don't know what to do with it. Why not use the vacant buildings for something that has purpose? And if not, it's just, I don't know. It bugs me every time I go into that land, as being a theme park nerd, like we all call ourselves, because we like to dissect things when we go into each land and say, "Oh, look at this," or "Look at that. What can we change about this? What can we change about that?" Compared to the soccer mom family that doesn't really care. Um, it just bugs me. Now, I want to ask you, since you did bring up the Star Cruiser and the permit to retrofit that hotel
Mhm.
for offices for WDI, um, you know, my question is because again, I'm going to reference back to Bricky. You know, he did a video a while back stating that, you know, our Star Wars Galaxy's Edge could incorporate, you know, the restaurant they had at the Galactic Star Cruiser, that interactive dinner experience, and then possibly another attraction, which would be another B or another e-ticket attraction behind that. Because when you walk into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and you're kind of by where the Millennium Falcon ship is, and you look off to kind of like your right hand side, you see this big, I mean, a huge entrance door, which could
Mhm.
possibly lead for another attraction. And then Bricky also showed where they already have the space and the infrastructure ready for that restaurant they had at at the Galactic Star Cruiser. And I know we were talking earlier about you know, the Monsters attraction in Hollywood Backlot being torn down, and them reutilizing the animatronics and some of the set pieces for the new Monstropolis land in Hollywood Studios. Do you think before they start renovating the Galactic Star Cruiser, a lot of the themed elements from that restaurant would go into storage and we could possibly see that type of restaurant come to our Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, since they already have the space for it and it's already there?
I think as far as with the expansion pad over at Galaxy's Edge, um, I think honestly they're saving it for something, whether it's to revitalize the original concept for the restaurant, I think would be really cool. Whether it's to add another attraction, would be cool because they basically can mirror um both of those concepts for Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Um, when it comes to the Star Cruiser, right now they're going to utilize for the WDI offices, but essentially they're just offices. You know,
Yeah,
Disney held on to the Star Cruiser building as long as they possibly could so they can get the tax write off because they lost a lot of money with that.
they did.
Um, so after they got the tax write off for it, now it's becoming offices for WDI, and they can move them anytime, any place, anywhere. It's just office buildings, but I think they're utilizing the space just so they know that they can use it for the time being. But essentially, I think that Star Cruiser area is essentially probably going to be all flattened out because they got their money back from constructing it so they could flatten out the land, get rid of the building, and it could either be a massive expansion to Galaxy's Edge, which I know that they wouldn't be able to do with Disneyland, but in a way it would kind of separate the two
Yeah.
rather than it just be a carbon copy, or they can add a whole completely new different land with a different IP that's adjacent off of Galaxy's Edge.
And 100% agree with you. I personally, from watching Bricky's video, it almost sounded like we could probably we can have both pieces of the cake and eat it too. We can have the restaurant
And
and
let's
then
face it, we all love cake.
exactly. Who doesn't love cake? Come on now. Um, we can have the restaurant and we can have the third attraction. The way he showed it, there
Mhm.
is enough room for both. And personally, if that was the case, and then they were going to incorporate some at Walt Disney World, you know, maybe not have the restaurant, but maybe have their own version of the third attraction. So it's not a carbon copy. But you know, personally for me, it's a lot easier nowadays to get into Oga's Cantina than it once was. And I think what's going to happen is if they do bring the restaurant, because the infrastructure, the building, the layout's already there, if they do bring it, yeah, for quite a while, it's going to be harder than hell to get in there. and book a reservation, but it's going to die off a little bit, if not a decent amount, where more and more people can enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't see why it would be such a horrible thing to bring it to our version of Galaxy's Edge, because the way I look at it, and the price hikes that Disney just announced and implemented screams this. They love making money. So why not bring an experience that's going to attract people and get them to pay money for the experience if they don't want to make money? Again,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah, and that Star Cruiser was an astronomical amount that they were asking for guests.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
was bad.
between $4,000 to $6,000
That
for
was
2 nights.
unrealistic.
Like for what? To sit in a hospital look-alike cafeteria, and have things so bleak that it's like, and they treat it like it's a cruise. I would rather go on a Disney cruise and spend that money for that than for a 2 night at the Star Cruiser, because
Definitely.
they said it was more so for the diehard Star Wars fans, but I don't know how that could be when there was nothing original about it.
No. No, and there was just a lot of problems with it.
I
They
mean, I
claim,
I tell you, I saw the disaster coming with that a mile away when they were announcing it at D23.
yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Because their justification is, who in the hell doesn't like Star Wars? First of all, there is so many. The fan base for Star Wars is humongous, and
Mhm.
then on top of that, they try to justify, oh well, we're charging that much because a lot of our performers live in the Star Cruiser. They're like a 24/7 kind of entertainment. It's like, okay, well, how's that our problem? You couldn't make different accommodations. So your idea is, let's mark it up 500% and see what happens. Well, they saw what happened. They closed and they lost, like you said, a ton of money, which backfired. And now anytime, and to be honest with you, George, I think that's why, and OG and you bring it up all the time, is I think compared to Universal, that decision making right there for the Star Wars, or for the Star Wars Galactic Cruiser, how it failed so miserably and the money they spent on that damn thing is why Disney to this very minute continues to be in the public spotlight, and Universal can kind of get away with murder.
And that's why Galaxy's Edge suffered, because everything that was supposed to go into Galaxy's Edge free of charge with your park admission, Chapek at the time decided to say, "Oh no, this needs to be put under a payment umbrella, so to speak. Let's throw all the meet and greets. Let's throw in the music entertainment. Let's throw in the shows. Let's throw in the dining, all into the Star Cruiser." So not only did Galaxy's Edge at Walt Disney World suffered, it suffered at Disneyland, because then people would be bitching to say, "Well, how come Disneyland gets all that stuff free of charge and we have to spend 6 grand at Walt Disney World?" So
Yeah.
they pulled it from Disneyland because it was going into Walt Disney World, and under Chapek's name, that thing was a complete calamity, and that's why Galaxy's Edge on both coasts suffer from it. So hopefully this is now a new peak, that since the Star Cruiser is gone, that they can start looking at Galaxy's Edge to expand. And I did talk to OG about this a little over a month ago. That my personal thought on this, I think honestly, there's going to be plans for Galaxy's Edge before Tomorrowland.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're not wrong, because if you think about it, okay, like I said, with the restaurant, with the third attraction, you know, if they decide to revisit those two ideas, um, that's all behind backstage. That has nothing to do with guest facing. So they could keep the land fully operational and build these new experiences compared to Tomorrowland, where they have to wall it off and cause a lot of ruckus to tear down a lot of dead buildings in a way that don't serve a purpose anymore. Because we all know when we were in downtown Disney and the destruction they did for the AMC theater, for all those other buildings, the old Earl Sandwich building, it was very disruptive, and the magic kind of got interrupted by that. So in a way, I couldn't agree more. They will probably do that before they touch Tomorrowland. That's
Yeah.
just a given
Yeah,
at this point.
absolutely. Now, speaking of like changes and expansion and removals and replacing and everything, this just doesn't go for individual attractions. It just doesn't go for lands within a theme park, but it could potentially lead to an entirely new theme park altogether, which
Yeah.
brings to the next topic. And I wanted to ask you on this because the route that I'm going to go with this isn't what people are really going to assume, because we could touch upon it with Disneyland Forward, but I wanted to start it off actually with Disneyland Paris,
Sure.
because it seems like there's some talk in the community, and this is courtesy of the Main Street News. While a dream for many, new details could point to the now infamous third gate. Could Disneyland Paris actually be planning something? Disneyland Paris might be preparing for its biggest expansion ever. So I wanted to ask you, starting off with Paris, and then we can move on to possibly the other Disney resort destinations.
Sure.
They're already in the process of revamping their Studios park to Adventure World or World Adventure. I can never remember which one it is.
Hmm.
Where they're getting the new Lion King attraction, they're getting Frozen. They're revamping the whole park, and it's going to look completely different as it is stands right now. But there
Sure.
have been some YouTube videos that surfaced online, not just from this article here, but a lot of people are saying there is a big piece of significant land surrounding the Disneyland Paris resort that could potentially lead to a third gate. And
Okay.
I think if Disneyland Paris gets a third gate, I think that would really be very tempting to look at Disneyland's future in Anaheim, because we're already seeing signs of it for Disneyland Forward. As I mentioned before, countless times, I've had people tell me that there is going to be a third gate and a new hotel coming in the Toy Story lot. But what say you on Disneyland Paris and how it can kind of interconnect with Disneyland, or even Walt Disney World for the matter, down the road for a possible fifth gate?
So okay, so from what I understand, you know, talking and a good friend of all of ours, Jason Hill, because he's been to all these international parks, including Disneyland Paris,
Yes.
and he's clearly. I've asked him about this park because it looks very beautiful. The castle is very unique, just like every castle in every Disney park.
Which, really quick, I do have to say really quick, hold your thought. Shout out to Jason Hill, very good friend of ours. And I have to say, he's been around the globe so many times to so many places. I think the only place he's never been is outer space. I think he covered pretty much planet Earth at this
Yeah.
point. And kudos to him, because honestly, I would love to be able to see the world of how he does it. He goes to so many places. But yeah,
Oh,
definitely shout out to Jason Hill, a very good friend of ours.
definitely. And he told me about Disneyland Paris. He said it's very, it's big, but there's not a lot to do. Like the attraction base is very small. A lot of the attractions they do have that other Disney parks like Walt Disney World, Disneyland have, they already have. Their Avengers campus isn't as big as ours. Ours is actually one of the biggest. Um, so he was even hinting at the time, because we've hung out with them at the Disneyland 70th, even the kickoff of the Disneyland 70th back last May. And he was even saying, gosh, I wish Disneyland Paris would get a third gate. Well, here's the evidence that they're looking at this. And what you were hinting at, could this impact other Disney parks? Absolutely. Because if you think about it, Epic Universe, which is Walt Disney World's neighbor for Universal, they built Epic Universe, they're already expanding it. There's possible talks of even adding a second gate to Epic Universe, if not adding a kids park like they have in Texas in that area, that Universal's building. And then, referencing back to Disneyland with the Toy Story parking lot, from what you're hearing about a hotel and that being a third gate, I think if they decide to move forward with Disneyland Paris is going to be the Trojan horse for these other Disney parks like Walt Disney World and Disneyland to build another park. Because again, Universal, I consider them a Trojan horse. Because think about it. They built Epic Universe. It's not even a year old yet. They're already expanding. They're building a Texas park that's almost done. That's supposed to open next year. Then you got the UK park they just announced a while back, and they're already breaking ground on that. Then you got the Horrors Unleashed, based off the world famous Halloween Horror Nights franchise. And then they're already looking at a second location, which is in Chicago, and then possible other locations once Chicago starts getting built. So it's like, Universal's not going to stop. So Disney, I kind of feel in a way, wants to respond to that. And what's a good way to respond? Adding a third park to Disneyland Paris, adding a fifth park possibly to Walt Disney World eventually. Probably not until 2035, but still the thought process is there. Then you got Disneyland, which is hopefully going to get a third gate in the Toy Story parking lot, which needs to happen.
And we know that Disney has invested and promised us a $60 billion investment into all the Disney parks and the cruise line and everything around the world, except for Tokyo Disneyland, because they get their funds from OLC. But everything else, I think, even like with the Asian parks, I think China puts in so much, but I think Disney has to cover the rest. And then, of course, Abu Dhabi is not going to be included with that as well. But you're absolutely right, because if you really look at the price tag of $60 billion, I don't believe we scratched the surface of that yet with just the projects that were announced, because we're only halfway through the 10-year commitment that they promised. And I've been hearing from sources that they said that the second half of the 10 years, those announcements are going to be much bigger and grander than the ones that we just got from last year.
Yeah. So that, again, it all comes down to, if Disneyland Paris does announce a third gate, which it sounds very reasonable, that's going to be the driving horse, or the Trojan horse, for Walt Disney World and Disneyland to look at adding, Disneyland a third gate, Walt Disney World a fifth park. And then, I also kind of feel as well, because if you look at Disneyland Paris, or Paris in general, it's not that far away from England, where Universal's building kind of like an Orlando type resort for Universal. And then, like you talked about with the $60 billion, with the cruise lines, you and OG have hinted time and time again, and a good friend on X, Universal Apex, has hinted that Universal might want to get into the cruise industry. And if they do, could you imagine the IP base they can put on these cruise lines? An HHN cruise line, a Jurassic World cruise line, Harry Potter, DreamWorks. The list goes on and on and on.
And I think that's why Disney is trying to stay ahead of the game with the cruise line industry,
Yeah.
because right now that's where they have the one up on Universal. So if Universal does decide to create its own cruise line, Disney wants to be one step ahead of them. And I feel like that's why we're nearly doubling the size of the Disney cruise line fleet. That we're going to be at 13 ships.
Wow.
And I have heard rumors that there is going to be a ship dedicated for Japan because OLC is funding that. Which I can't imagine what that ship's going to be like. If their parks are anything of what people are saying, I can imagine what their Disney cruise ship is going to be
It's
like.
going to be beautiful.
But I've also heard that they're in talks, even while they're planning the first ship, that they're going to want a second ship after it. So that's going to possibly be 14 ships. And then we know once Abu Dhabi opens, they're probably going to want a cruise ship over there at the Middle East. They're going to want to get in on the party. And we know that if Abu Dhabi's willing to fund the theme park, they'll fund their Disney cruise ship. So that's 15 cruise ships. So they're definitely going to want to stay ahead of the game. But yeah, for Universal, that that could very well lead into a whole nother ball game where Disney would have extra competition in the cruise line industry, not just with Norwegian, not just with Royal Caribbean, not just with Princess, not just with Carnival. Well, scratch the last one. But but yeah, but just in general, yeah, they will definitely have more of a one-on-one with Universal with that because they're already rivals in the theme park industry. So you might as well add it into the cruise line industry.
Well, see, what I find very interesting, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but with these international parks, the Asian parks, you talking about OLLC, building, not building, but expanding on the Asian parks because they own it. I have to give Disney credit though. Okay, let's say just hypothetically they don't cover the cost, they're still making money. Okay, they're still making money at the Asian parks because you have to think about it. Okay, it's almost like Disney's acting like a real estate agent, and they're leasing out their IP to the Asian parks, and the Asian parks in return are paying Disney for the IP they're leasing out, even though
Right.
they're paying for
for Japan, for Japan, they're fully 100% leasing out. For Shanghai and Hong Kong, I think it's
like
correct me if I'm wrong. Comment down below, folks. I think they lease out partial.
Okay.
But I still think like Disney still owns a chunk of that.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, but as far as like for Tokyo, yeah, they're basically renting out their properties to Japan. Japan's paying everything. Disney can utilize the R&D.
Yeah.
For nothing.
Well, let me ask you this: is Disneyland Paris the same way, or is that different?
I think they used to not own it, but I think Disney took full control over Paris now.
Okay, so the reason why I bring it up, like with the Asian parks, like Tokyo and whatnot, this is another brilliant thing that I have to give Disney credit for. So as they're building these new experiences with new infrastructure, new IT, new tech, they're actually paying Disney to sit there and build these experiences. So Disney's not even covering the cost of these new attractions that, like for example, Tokyo Disney's building. And in a way, they're kind of getting they're kind of getting the whole cake if you think
really
about
it. Yeah, they really are.
Because they're paying Disney to build these experiences and then send them back to the Tokyo Disney. Then on top of that, Disney is getting paid not only to build the experience, but still getting paid for leasing the IP out. And then the third piece to that is if they want to incorporate that ride system into the domestic parks, they already have the technology, they already have the blueprints, they already know how to build it, and they just kind of add the domestic twist to it. So it's not a carbon copy.
Exactly. So yeah, so everything falls under Disney's favor, and honestly, pretty soon that's going to be times two because for the longest time, only OLC for Tokyo Disneyland was able to do that. Now they're doing it with Abu Dhabi in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So they're going to have two Disney resorts that are literally going to shell out the money to them, and they're very willing to do so. And kudos to OLC and I forget the name of the company for Abu Dhabi, but I mean, yeah, hey, if they have the money and they want Disney to build this stuff on on their dime, no pun intended, then go for it. It's a win-win for Abu Dhabi. It's good for Tokyo. It's good just for the Disney brand. It's all around win.
Oh, 100%.
Now, I want to ask you because speaking of all like the news of like what's going to break out for next year at D23 and everything, and we talked about D23 for a hefty amount of time during our our marathon lives for Destination D23, which basically that was the starting point of like having my channel skyrocket. So thank you
Yeah.
for joining me on the D23 Destination D23 coverage. Um, but I want to ask you before I get into the real question of it, for D23, what is your expectations for next year of how Disney can kind of basically one up themselves? Because I mean, they gave a phenomenal presentation last year.
Yeah.
How does Disney keep up with that now? Because now they set the base for themselves. They can't give us anything less than spectacular moving forward. Now they created their template. How does Disney keep up with that for these presentations? And what what is your thought process of what is going to be announced? What is more predictable? What's more of a long shot? What's your whole take on it?
So my whole thing is, and I thought they were going to do this at Destination D23, which I still think they should have, is for Destination D23, I think what they need to do going forward is to sit there and kind of go into more detail of the projects they announced at D23, which is obviously the bigger event. Destination D23 takes place in Florida in Orlando, while D23 takes place right across the street from Disneyland in Anaheim. And one thing I would like to see going forward, Destination D23, is just go into more detail about what they announced. Now, for D23, what I can see them up in the ante on is possibly announcing either update details on what we heard 2 years ago, or they can announce maybe, and again, it's a long shot, but finally a deconstruct and rebuild of Tomorrowland, which would get so many people excited right off the bat. Then you got what we talked about earlier with Star Wars, since it kind of became the stepchild and thrown in the back corner. If they announce, hey, you know that wonderful interactive restaurant you guys saw at Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, we're bringing that first to the Disneyland Resort coming 2027 or some crazy nonsense like that. If they announce a third attraction for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, I can see, they can up the ante by saying, yeah, we're going to be expanding DCA into the Simba parking lot, and one of the IPs we're looking at is possibly what you call it, a Wakanda land, based off Black Panther. They could say, oh, we're going to get rid of the not the Hyperion, but the Fantasyland Theater, and either build a Beauty and the Beast type attraction, or and this is going to be a crazy one. They could build either a Lion King attraction or a Aladdin attraction into our park. I think if they announce something like that, and then if they kind of go the blue sky, which I'm okay with, if they announce it right and they say we are looking, but it's not justified yet, but we are looking at possibly building a third gate at the Toy Story parking lot. I think those ideas right there would ump the ante times 100 because people would get excited by far.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I do hope that, for the next D23, especially because again, we don't even know what the price ranges this is going to
No,
be,
it's
and
scaring me.
chances are this is going to be 2 years after the fact of the last one, and with the fact that Disney just upped their prices for tickets, annual passes, food, parking, uh I'm for sure D23 is now going to up the price for all these different tiered tickets. And again, they have to deliver on what they're giving us because they have to set a higher expectation of what they already performed and produced to us from last year.
And
Um,
and there's two IPs to add on top of that that they could possibly announce is the World of Arendelle
mhm.
and Zootopia. If they add that somehow in the mix, that would be crazy. But my only problem is here's my gripe about all this is the mere fact that, you know, it's great they're announcing all this stuff if we see some of that, but they haven't even started on the Coco Dark ride. They haven't even started on Avengers Campus, or I'm sorry, Avatar. Then you got all these other, things they want to do. It's people are going to go, "Well, we're excited, but if you keep piling on new stuff that you want to bring to the resort, are you telling me by 2050 we might see this stuff?"
Yeah, we're
It's like,
gonna that's a very good point. They have to show us proof that these current projects are already in the works, like, physically,
yeah,
where we're starting to see progress where, yeah, we're not just seeing dirt move, as Damaro said, we have to see infrastructures actually going vertical,
yeah,
because even to the fact of the Eastern Gateway, of why it is taking this long to build
it's
a parking
stupid.
structure on land that they already own. They bought the Carousel Inn
Yeah,
years ago. They demolished the damn thing.
yeah.
Why is it taking almost 2 years to build a parking structure and a bridge?
I
They
don't get
got
it.
the green light from Anaheim. What are they waiting for?
Well, see that's part of the problem that I see. It's like, why? And again, they already got all the permits. They already So why is it taking so damn long? Again, I said this during my Conductor Sunday live stream, and I think I even said it with Orange Grove 55's channel with Weba. Um, I said, why in the hell is it taking so long? But yet Disney feels like they need to increase prices the way they did this year coming compared to previous years where it was a little spike, but not like it was this year, and there's nothing new to show for it. Again, it's I thought the whole goal since I would say 2019, because the way I see it is for and I'm just going to reference this for the Olympics. These theme parks, the state of California, they had to have known at least 8 to 10 years out that they were going to get the Olympics back in Southern California. That was 10 years if that was the case. And again, I might be completely wrong, but if it was 10 years, why in the hell are they slow pacing stuff? I get it, like you and OG have said, because of the quarterly earnings, They want to spread the wealth. I understand that. But when you're talking about an basically an event for 2 weeks that brings in so many international crowds into one state,
Mhm.
that could be such a lottery jackpot of revenue for these theme parks. You would think when Josh tomorrow goes on stage and says, "We're turbocharging construction," where are you turbocharging construction compared to your counterpart, Universal?
Well,
They
yeah,
they don't
exactly.
they
It
don't
felt
go
like
into detail. Oh, go
when
ahead.
it
I'm sorry.
no, 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 sorry. I did just wanted to just get this thought process after you said that because when it comes to the Olympics, Disney is basically handing Universal the gauntlet. They're
Yeah,
basically handing it on a golden platter because one, Universal's already going to be up on Disney because it's in the LA area. It's much more closer than
yes.
Disneyland. So Disneyland should be working 10 times harder to attract people to say, "Hey, you're coming into LA, come down to Anaheim. We're going to have the Avengers, we're going to have Coco, we're going to have Avatar." The fact that Iger mentioned Avatar, what was it, 2023?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago
Like, that's like they should have already been
under construction in
under construction
2024.
with Avatar. If
Yeah,
that was the main goal that they wanted to have all this stuff ready for the 2028. Because when Universal starts their construction and everything that Theme Park Wizard, shout out to him by the way, had suggested that with the new hotel and there's going to be permits for what 6 different new rides that's going into the park. We don't even know what all that is. But here's the thing: Universal don't give a shit. They're going
uh-uh,
to just start building the damn things, and we're going to find out the day before they actually open it. And
pretty
they're going to be
much.
like, "Here you go, America. Here you go, international travelers. When you come in for the Olympics, this is what we have for you." And then here's Disney coming in. "Oh, we just put up the fucking door."
Yeah.
Like, it's like, pardon my French, but it's like so frustrating.
Oh,
It's like, I don't understand
it
why.
it it definitely is. Now, I'm gonna push back just a little bit because I've said it time and time again, and I think you can agree to this. Anyone, whether it's international or it's out of state, Disneyland is always going to be a staple. That's never going to change.
Yeah.
But when you're publicly going into the public space with crowds or just announcing stuff where people can see it, that's not private, and it's in the public forum, saying we're going to build this, but yet it's taking you all this time to build it. And like you said, great point, their counterpart, Universal, already built Epic Universe. They're building the Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift project or coaster. Then you got all the new security they're building for Universal Hollywood to update security. They're revamping City Walk as we know it. Like you said, there's 6 new attractions between what's going to be part of the theme park and also the studio tour. And the fact, like you said, the fact that the Olympics, the central hub of it, is going to be at Universal, with even Olympic competitions being on the studio lot. You know, I agree with you. Why would Disney slow pace stuff instead of saying, you know what, let's turbocharge like we mean it, put our foot on the gas, and build stuff? Now, I do have to give them credit though, because the 2 new Avengers attractions, they have been building at turbo speed. I can give them credit for that. But like you said, with one of the biggest IPs that Disney is part of, which is Avatar, they're slow pacing it, they're slow dogging it, and this massive, humongous parking structure, which I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be bigger than Mickey and Friends.
They said it's supposed to be bigger than Mickey and Friends and Pixar Pals combined.
Well, that's what I mean. You're
Yeah.
you're talking about probably a 3 or 4 year project for that alone. Imagine how much concrete they need to use to build that damn thing.
Well, and this is what I don't understand too. Iger made the announcement that Avatar was coming to the Disneyland Resort before it got leaked that it was going to be DCA, and then Tomorrow confirmed it at uh, D23.
Yeah.
Okay, they announced it in 2023. Obviously, they're not going to start construction in 2023. They had to wait for the the Anaheim City Council, tongue twister there, to give them the green light. They gave them the green light in 2024. In 2024, that Eastern Gateway should have started. If they would have started the Eastern Gateway, then I would have put Avatar in the Simba lot. Screw the decision of putting it in Hollywoodland,
Yeah.
because here's why, what they could have done with that. Why didn't they start on Coco yet? Because they're waiting for Halloween to be over, because the placement of where they're putting Coco might interfere with the parade route,
Mm,
right? There's a
yeah.
possibility. So they have to wait for Halloween to be over. Why not move Coco into the backlot area? They wouldn't even have to, they could eventually touch the bus load unload area, but you could tear down uh the uh the buildings,
Sure.
take out Monsters Inc., Mike and Sully to the rescue, move all their props and animatronics down to Florida for Monstropolis at DHS. You could then take that show building and then you can add to it into the bus load unload area. They don't even have to demolish it. They can add on to it. And why could they do that into the bus load unload area? Because they already started on the Eastern Gateway project 1 year prior. So that way it wouldn't have delayed Coco. It wouldn't have delayed Avatar.
Yeah.
Avengers is already underway. I guarantee you, if they would have strategized that much differently, and they had it, the ball was in their court when the Anaheim City Council greenlit everything for them. Everything. They could have had all three projects up and running by the time the Olympics came.
See, that's the problem I see, because we talked about earlier with the hotel that that was supposed to go in downtown Disney, where ESPN is, where Rainforest Cafe is, where the former AMC Theater was, where Earl Sandwich was, and then, like I said, and I quote Bricky on this, the ink wasn't even dry on the contract yet, and they were already having bulldozers and stuff on property to start building this damn thing, and then they canceled it. It's like, if they have the capability to do that when the ink isn't even dry, why in the hell are they just moving now when they couldn't have had, when the Anaheim City Council officially sign off? What was the date on that?
It was, you know what? Let me,
Well, why you're bringing that up?
yeah.
um whatever date it was probably a good year and a quarter, if I had to guess. um if that's the case, a year and a quarter, think about that, folks, a year and a quarter, they kind of started immediately building Avatar in the Simba parking lot, which would not interrupt theme park hours, because it would be on a off-site kind of location where they couldn't have started building it. They couldn't have already been halfway done with it. On top of that, like George was saying, with the Hollywood backlot, where basically it's only one attraction in there with a whole bunch of shops and, vacant stage buildings that do nothing. And then you got a kind of like, a temporary stage for like little concerts here and there that are Disney themed with characters. That land's not doing anything. It's like Tomorrowland 2.0. So you kind of walled that off, started building Coco, and you couldn't have been ahead of the game. And why they decided to not do that, that was very, very stupid on their part not to do that.
I completely agree with you. So there needed to be a two-part vote. They
Okay.
needed the first vote to go through to move on to the second level. So the first vote was done on April 17th, 2024. They were granted the green light to move into the second vote. The second and final vote was on May 7th, 2024. The Anaheim City Council unanimously voted to approve Disneyland Forward, a multi-year public planning effort to update the Disneyland Resort. So
Okay.
May 7th, 2024.
Okay, so let me count because I have it on my phone. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, almost 18 months to this day on October the 14th, 2025. Almost 18 months. They couldn't have been ahead of the game, and now they just start construction.
Because if they really wanted to quote unquote turbocharge, you turbocharge the Eastern Gateway, which would leave for, you could have already started on Avengers Campus. Again, that's another one. I don't know why it took so long. That was land that was already, that was only backstage area.
Yeah.
That was already signaled for theme park expansion. So I don't even know why that took that long. And then by doing the Eastern Gateway, they could have pushed up Coco and Avatar, and I would have changed the routes because of pushing up the Eastern Gateway for Disneyland Forward. I would have changed the fact that Avatar is going into Hollywoodland, put Avatar over in the Simba parking lot, and I would have moved Coco instead of shoehorning it into behind the Incredicoaster, move it over to Hollywoodland. And that
Yes.
whole backlot area could have been a nice little Mexican pavilion area with music and food, and then you would have had the big signature Coco attraction that would have went into the show building of Monsters Inc. Because again, if Coco is going to be bigger than Monsters Inc., they always could have expanded that building out because they could have, because the Eastern Gateway would have already started.
And it again it's a missed opportunity. So now the question becomes, by the time the Olympics come and those international crowds come in for 2 weeks, which park will benefit more?
And that's why they moved Coco up. They were supposed to start in early 2026. They got it at the end of 2025. I think now Disney kind of maybe understands that they messed up, but they'll never admit it. So they'll
No.
kind of cover up and say, "Oh yeah, we're just ahead of schedule. We're moving." I think now they're really trying to push hard because after the fact that they probably already found out about Universal's plans before it was released to all of us, because we know all the theme park industries, they all know one another. They
Oh,
talk, they go to seminars, they go to meetings, they go to bridge tournaments, whatever the hell they do offhand. They talk. They all, even though that we say that they're in good, healthy competition, Universal and Disney talks
they
on a
communicate.
regular basis. So Disney already knew once they found out, and because we even seen Iger and Damaro in the Universal parks.
Yes.
We've seen them in Epic Universe. We've seen them out here in Hollywood. What are they doing? They're scouting out their competition. Once they find out they knew what Universal was planning, they're probably like, oh shit, what did we do?
Exactly.
We messed up. We got to hurry up, and now we got to really turbocharge this.
Yeah. And that's the problem, because now, instead of having multiple attractions plus the land done by the Olympics, they're only going to have 3 attractions ready, which again, is that going to be enough justification compared to Universal, which they're going to have updated security, which is going to cause City Walk to change forever and bring back nighttime entertainment, possibly nightclubs and bars and whatnot, which it once had at one point. Then you got at least 1, if not 2 hotels that possibly are going to be ready. Probably just 1 out of the 2 is going to be ready, but I'm still satisfied with that. Then you got Fast and Furious opening probably early 2026, which they already kind of semi-announced, but I think early previews are going to start maybe in December. I cross my fingers on that. Then you got multiple attractions, maybe a land possibly being built at Universal Hollywood. So again, it's a missed opportunity. They screwed up, but yet their justification is, oh well, let's price hike everybody and kind of have a good laugh about it in the corner. And again, I'm not saying that the theme parks don't increase prices every year,
It was the
but
amount.
it was the amount they did it on every single category they own
And it's
is
like, and
what
even like
shocks.
for the parking, like really, $35 to $40 for a matter of $5, they couldn't have just left it.
Exactly. That's what I mean. That again, that's exactly what I mean. If you look at construction right now, this is a prime example. Okay, Tomorrowland. I'm going to start with that. How many times has Disney WDI changed and updated that picture from what Tomorrowland, what they wanted it to look like? How many times has that picture faded out and they've changed it to make it look brand new and done nothing? Then you look at what's going on in downtown Disney. They can't even get one of the biggest restaurant slash bakeries to come into downtown Disney. They're still fighting with that.
They
The-
made that like what how long did they make that announcement? What was that, 2023?
I think so. If you want to Google it, I don't know the exact
That's
date,
like
but
what? That's going on like what, 3 years since they, I mean, it's
pretty
it's
much.
it's a, it's a bakery for Christ's sakes. Like it I don't get it.
Yeah, and then you got the barbecue joint alongside with the high-end steakhouse that they were fast enough to rip down Tortilla Joe's, put them out of business, rip it to the ground, and have done nothing with it. They're basically stalled at this point. Then you got Earl's Sandwich, their new location. You know, construction started rapid at first. Now they're out of stall. The only new information we got about that building is that Gordon Ramsay's going to have some type of tavern restaurant on the top level of that tri-level building. That's not only going to have Earl's Sandwich, but now it's going to have a Gordon Ramsay restaurant.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, me too, because I love his fish and chips and his other food. But again, it's the mere fact that they announce all this stuff to hype us up, but then it goes nowhere, or they delay it so far that it's like either it gets canceled or it gets delayed, or then it's like, okay, why in the hell would you think it would be okay to increase the prices the way you did compared to previous years? Why this year increase it higher than normal? For what reason? Why would you do that?
Yeah, so
Because
they could just jack it up another 3 times more when all this stuff does open.
exactly. Meanwhile, Universal, I'm sure, is going to jack their prices up because of the Fast and Furious and the hotels. But at least we're getting new stuff. They can justify that. Compared to Disney, they increase prices the way they did this year, and then they have nothing to show for it.
Yeah,
Wow.
I would, me personally, I would, if I was Disney, I would have increased it a little bit
Oh, sure.
this year. 2026, increase it a little bit more. 2027, that's when I would have went for the kill. Because then at least you can justify, okay, Avengers Campus is opening this year. Coco's going to open up a year after. There's a trend. It
Yes.
follows like a domino effect. That would entice people to spend the money. What? You're jacking up the price 8.2% on the highest Magic Key just to go into DCA that's already a half-day park, and you're going to have walls of construction up?
Yeah, and again, the other problem I see with doing that 8.2% on the Inspire key is, again, and I know how you and OG feel about this, but with the Magic Band situation, I brought this up on Conductor Sunday live stream. I said, why, going forward, if they plan on eventually building a third gate, if they, for what they announced that's already coming for Disneyland Forward with Avatar, with the two Avengers attractions, with Coco, with possibly or not possibly, but the Eastern Gateway project. Then you got you got all the new restaurants coming into downtown Disney. Then you got whatever they're going to build in the Simba parking lot alongside the Lilo and Stitch parking lot. You know, I would like to see more functionality with the Magic Bands. I know a lot of people don't like that, but they already invested in it. They already built the infrastructure into the parks for it. They already, have a wide variety of IP based Magic Bands. Why abandon it now? You already stepped in it. Why
Right.
not evolve it instead of saying, you know what, we're just going to throw it aside, get rid of it, and it'll be another Galactic Star Cruiser decision 2.0,
See,
which
here's the thing with that, and I do want to clarify.
sure.
I think it will work to Disneyland's benefit once it becomes a full-fledged multi-day resort destination, travel destination. I feel like
Sure.
once it kind of ties into how Walt Disney World does it, I think that way it would be utilized well, and then you could justify the price increase on that. Just right now, to
Yeah.
implement it, I don't think that they're ready for prime time yet for the
No,
Magic Band.
no,
But I would
that's
say
fine.
keep it implemented.
Yeah.
All the added features that they added, keep it there. I think honestly that should be a long-term goal for Disney when it comes to the Disneyland Resort, that when they do add another hotel, when they do add another uh, theme park gate, when they do add all these expansions for these new lands, new attractions, new experiences, new restaurants, what have you, then I would say utilize the Magic Bands.
Well, see, the reason why I advocate for the Magic Bands, and right now the way I see it, they have enough hotels on property to implement at least the hotel aspect of the Magic Band, getting into your room. And maybe, and I'm just saying hypothetically, maybe using it to pay for merch and food. Because if you think about it, and I said this also on Conductor Sunday live stream, I said, when you go into Disneyland, the biggest problem I have is, and Bricky said it best, and I love his comment, it's becoming the new iOS park resort, where you're constantly on your phone, you're constantly using it to book reservations, book lightning lanes, book this, book that. It's like, why sit there and be on your phone all this time to do all that nonsense when you already have a product that's already built into the infrastructure? You update that damn thing and you kind of use it so people are less on their phones and they can use the Magic Band as kind of like a subsidy, so people and families that have the Magic Band can enjoy the magic a lot more than worrying about every 5 seconds they're on their phone to book the next lightning lane, to book the next reservation at any of the restaurants on Main Street, or worrying to sit there and do Apple Pay on their damn phone for merch or for food. It's like, I thought the whole point of Disneyland is to immerse you into the magic, not sit there and immerse you and you feel like you're in a damn Apple store.
Yeah, and that was always the thing that I've noticed, that it became more like corporate side, like it looked more like Apple, more like IKEA when it came to the resort hotels, and I really wish that they would bring back the more nostalgic theming to everything. Yeah, so I definitely see your point. I definitely agree with you. I guess I can see like them utilizing it at least for the hotels for the time being. I just think for Disney,
Yeah,
that should be kind of like at the bottom of the roster right now.
sure.
towards everything that they really should have been working on in the past 2 years. Um,
Exactly.
but I wanted to ask you too, because this I think was mentioned on a few times on both of our lives, and I just recently watched Dave from Fresh Baked. Shout out to him; he does phenomenal work, and it was under the topic of the new theater show that's
Okay.
coming to Disneyland.
Okay.
And I had read the description when they were trying to hire for performers, and they were reading as like variety acts. And I'm thinking, well, are they looking for like street performers, like in like in the while you're walking through each land? But it
Sure.
says like a theater type show. And then after watching Fresh Baked, it hit me, and he really makes a very good point. Could we potentially see, because we were all thinking, oh, is this something that's going to go into the Fantasyland theater? I don't think they would do a variety act in the Fantasyland theater, but could we potentially see a new kind of show going into the Golden Horseshoe?
I think the Golden Horseshoe is definitely overdue for a new show. The stage has had those signs for quite some time with no show, and I kind of feel that a lot of people kind of skip going into the Golden Horseshoe because of that reason. Because first of all, I'm going to be honest with you, I would love to have lunch in there and be entertained. That's what that space was meant for.
Mhm.
So when people go in there and
It's
they
it's basically built as a dine-in theater, and it's being underutilized.
exactly. And again, this is part of the problem, at least out here at Disneyland. I don't know so much about Walt Disney World, but out here in Disneyland, entertainment's starting to get cut back. And I'm not talking about the parades. I'm not talking about nighttime entertainment with the fireworks and the nighttime parades. I'm talking about during the day entertainment for
Mm.
real. Like that show, like the Fantasyland Theater, there's nothing going on there. They cut back on characters at Avengers Campus. They cut back at different areas of both Disneyland and DCA for characters. It's like, what are we doing here? Where's the magic? Where where where's the justification where I walk in, pay the outrageous prices you want, and then all you have to show for it is overpriced merch, overpriced food, long wait times for attractions because you guys oversell Lightning Lane, so the guest experience is ruined on most attractions. Then there's no entertainment. And the Golden Horseshoe is one of those prime golden spots. No point intended, but you walk in, you get away from the crowds to a point. You get away from if it's during the summer where it's like a freak heat wave, which we seem to have almost every single summer now, which is ridiculous. And then even during the winter, if it's raining, you're telling me that you couldn't put some type of entertainment into that space and fill up the Golden Horseshoe, because a lot of times you walk in there, yeah, the lower level might be available, but you got the whole upstairs that's sitting vacant and abandoned. Basically, they don't use it, and the problem is the recently they've been using the Golden Horseshoe for like private events or for cast member awards or something like that. It's like, again, it's like the Hyperion Theater. It's a massive footprint. It does nothing for the guests, and they justify keeping it for corporate events, for private events. How in the hell is that benefiting any of us that go to the park, pay the ridiculous prices we pay, and yet you're not utilizing every square inch of real estate you own to bring the magic to us?
I agree. I feel like with the Hyperion Theater, like it's a beautiful theater. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I would literally remove that theater, add extra space into the theme park, put in a theater at Downtown Disney, and that
Yes.
way you can upcharge a Broadway style production where people then the theater could be utilized and
Yeah.
Disney's making a profit. Because I think that was the whole reason why they stopped using the Hyperion because it was included with your park ticket, and those productions were very expensive to put on
Yeah.
multiple times a day, every single day of the week.
Okay,
So
so let me ask you this real quick, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but let me ask you because you got the where the former ESPN Zone building is, and then you got right across the way you got Rainforest, but
Mhm,
behind that you got Lilo and Stitch. What
mhm.
if they built what Universal Studios Hollywood used to have with the Gibson Theater, and they built an amphitheater like that where they can host Disney productions, like kind of what they do with like Disney on Ice, and they go to each state and whatnot,
Yeah.
and they go to like a Honda Center or they go like to a a crypto center or some. But what if they built an amphitheater like that on property and they charge it as a extra expense, and they don't have to sit there and pay concert venues to host a Disney production, which would save them money. And then when they're not hosting a Disney production, they can have a live band come in, perform a concert, and then everybody, people would be enticed to come to downtown Disney and go eat at the restaurants that they all have there, and that would make Disney money. I don't get
Yeah.
it.
I I think that would really benefit Disney, especially for Downtown Disney. That would
Yes.
definitely bring more entertainment into the resort and also bring some life into Downtown Disney. Because I have to be very honest, I prefer City Walk at Universal over
Oh,
Downtown Disney at this point. Um, I would actually I don't know necessarily if I would put it in the Lilo and Stitch parking lot because I would
sure.
still utilize that for, um, expansion for Disneyland.
Oh, sure.
Um, but I would I would strongly suggest maybe knocking out a few more of those underutilized, as Jeff Volley says, um, buildings in Downtown Disney and build a grand theater. Build a theater and have Broadway style productions. Or yeah, during off season, maybe that's where they can hold the candlelight procession where it's not going to be like crowded into Disneyland Park where you can't get a good spot to see it. Maybe that could be, and I get it. People are going to say, oh, like it's going to be extraordinary where with the price upcharge. Well, Disney's upcharging you anyway, no matter what.
Oh, sure.
They're gonna get you no matter what. So honestly, they could hold the candlelight procession in there. They can they can do whatever they really want, and they can get rid of the Hyperion, add more park space for DCA. I mean, hell, even Knott's Berry Farm has the Walter Knott Theater. Now, even though that's included with the park
Yeah.
admission, Knott's doesn't get as much traction as Disneyland does.
Yeah.
So they can afford to have a theater already included in the park admission. But Disney, they already do it down at Disney Springs for Walt Disney World with the Cirque
Sure.
du Soleil show. Um, yeah, just add in some extra. And honestly, another big mistake that Disney got rid of because of that hotel that never was the House of Blues.
Yes.
I think out of everything that they could have gotten rid of, they should have never touched the House of Blues.
Exactly. And now it's in Garden Walk, but again, I 100% agree with you. But again, like you said with the unutilized buildings, what perfect spot would be is the former ESPN Zone building and Rainforest. If you level both those buildings, you get rid of the entrance in the downtown Disney between those two buildings, and you build the amphitheater right there. And again, you put Disney style productions with an upcharge, which I understand, which I'm okay with, but you do an upcharge instead of taking it on the road, going to state by state, paying a ton of money to rent out event space at these arenas. and putting on a production, why not just put it in downtown Disney, save yourself the money of travel, of lugging around, costumes and set pieces and staff. Just have it on site at downtown Disney, and then when the off time season comes, you have bands come in. I mean, actual bands like I'm not saying they would ever do it, but bands like Maroon Five, bands like Coldplay, Linkin Park, stuff like that. And then once the concert's over with, people are more enticed to go in downtown Disney. I don't understand why they don't consider that concept, because I know for a fact when Universal Hollywood had the Gibson Amphitheater before they tore it down to build Harry Potter, it was pretty popular. My dad himself saw many concerts there, and it was pretty packed. Maybe not 100% of the time, but it was pretty packed. It was an upcharge, and then people, what people would do, you know, um, basically, they would go into the Gibson Theater, go see the concert, and then they would head right in the City Walk, go eat in City Walk, or go check out the Sal Ranch restaurant right outside the gates, or go hit some of the bars that City Walk had, and it was a gold mine. I don't know exactly why they decided to get rid of that theater. I think it was more because they wanted to build more theme park space, so they built Harry Potter. But if Disney did something like that, you imagine how much more money they would make and how much more money they would save from traveling around city by city, renting out concert venues and arenas for a Disney production that they may or may not sell out tickets for. And the fact that they have to pay staff, they have to pay trucking companies to lug costumes, set pieces around from city to city. Imagine the money they can save if they just have it in house and at downtown Disney. Oh my
Mhm.
God, you're talking about a cash mine right there.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't get
Absolutely.
it.
But kind of circling back to the Golden Horseshoe, that is a must.
Yes.
That theater needs to be saved. That needs to stay.
Yeah.
It is being underutilized and it needs to be reutilized for the purpose of it that was meant. And honestly, it brings back entertainment. It adds more to be given to the land of Frontierland rather than just Big Thunder.
Yeah.
Um, you could have private, parties in there, you can have receptions, you can have whatever. And again, then you can have dinner and a show, which basically Walt Disney World does with the Hoop-Dee-Doo Review at Disney's Fort Wilderness. Now, I don't expect it to be that big, but they can do a Hoop-Dee-Doo Review light. And
Yeah.
honestly, what I would do is remove the quick counter
Yeah.
service thing out of there, add more seating, and have it be brought out to you prefix buffet style. Me
That would be
personally.
awesome. I would love that. And again, that's just another idea out of many ideas that is possible that they don't explore. Why?
And we could think of it at the top of our heads. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. They are getting paid to do this. I
Yeah,
don't know what I don't know what the issues are that they can't come again. Everything is going to have obstacles up and
sure.
down, red and yellow tape, but you start off with a base plan and then you work from there.
But see, here's the problem that I see with it. You said red and yellow tape, and I've said consistently that Disney, for whatever reason, loves going through that tape.
They
Meanwhile, their counterpart says the hell with the tape, and they go full steam ahead, which I
well,
don't get.
they have to make a lot of stops to the hardware store for how much tape they go through.
God, Home Depot must be their underlying contractor alongside Lowe's. I don't even think that's enough. Maybe Harbor Freight, maybe even more than that. Who in the hell knows? It's like, good lord. Why? I,
I
I,
don't get it.
I
I just don't get it.
no,
Now, I wanted to ask you too, because I wanted to. Um, I know that majority of this conversation was through Disney, but
sure,
um, before we kind of wrap things up, I wanted to dip into a little bit of topics with Universal.
sure.
At the time of this recording, you were telling me um, some interesting things that might be going on at Universal Hollywood regarding the Fast and the Furious roller coaster. And you have a little bit of a set plan that you have going on this week. If you want to let the viewers know what that plan is and what possibly could be happening there.
Sure. So basically, we saw, and shout out to not only Theme Park Wizard, but to Universal High on X and Instagram. They posted that they had the ride vehicles, all four cars on one train on the track right outside the load station. They had test dummies in the seats, and it looked like they were going to launch that minute, but they were just kind of testing it. And then we saw from American Coaster Network on Instagram, and he even put out a YouTube video today, and he was showing how they were literally going out of the station all the way to the very end of the straightaway, the first launch, and then going backwards towards the station, and then eventually going back into the station. And again, shout out to Theme Park Wizard. He let me know that, and it's in the public forum, that basically they're going to be doing ride testing, and I mean full ride testing throughout the entire layout of the track this month. And Wizard hinted at to me, because I asked him, he said possibly maybe this week, maybe next week they could be testing, but probably this week because, like I said, they already have the test dummies in the seats ready to go. So when George was talking about my plan is Thursday, I'm going to be at Universal Hollywood all day until it closes. Friday, I'm going to be there until they kick us out for HHN, because I think HHN is happening on Friday. So I'm going to stay there right until they kick us out, and I'm going to see if they ride test it, because it almost seems like they're going to. And I have to tell you, if we start seeing ride testing this week, next week, but I think it's this week. I think it's either Thursday or Friday, and it wouldn't have been either today or tomorrow if it wasn't raining in Southern California. Um, I can almost see a sliver of hope that by December, maybe, and I'm not confirming this, but maybe they can do soft openings for not only team members but annual pass holders as well. And again, that's just a random timeline. They could push it to December, but I think if they want to play it smart, since Grinchmas is part of Christmas and the holiday season, which all the parks, including Disney, gets packed with holiday crowds. What better way to kind of entice people to either get a pass or to come back to Universal by maybe doing a soft opening?
Yeah, I definitely could hear you. I think there could be a possibility that they do it in December. I
Yeah.
think if they decided to do that, it would be after Christmas, but before New Year's. I feel
Yes.
like it would be like in that little nook, I would say like the 27th or the 28th.
Yeah.
If not, then they may just wait till after New Year's and
Sure.
start the team member previews, the annual pass previews. Um, because I think they're gonna want that up and running during the time that it's the slow season after the holidays. When you have like the first 3 months of the new year where there's really nothing going on, and I think they're gonna wanna have it open for spring break, and they're definitely gonna wanna have it open by the next Fan Fest, which is gonna be in April, which it all falls into the around the same timeline.
Exactly. And one of the things I want to see, because we talked about Disney and how it was a missed opportunity with Disneyland Forward projects waiting 18 months after the green light from the Anaheim City Council after the second vote. I would be very curious to see if Universal puts their pedal to the metal and starts deconstructing The Simpsons, because that is rumored to be the next project they might be looking at that's in the theme park. Now, again, that's not saying they won't build or they won't tear down sound stages to build either an attraction or a land. I'm just saying I think Simpsons is the next project to go because they have a timeline to get rid of that IP because of the 2028 lease agreement that now Disney owns because they own 21st Century Fox.
See, I think for me, I think there was like an area that Wizard was talking about that has like it's open land. There's nothing there, but it's adjacent to Wizarding World.
Okay.
I think they might lean towards that next before The Simpsons, and here's why. I feel like that being that the contract is up in 2028, they're going to want to utilize that contract as long as they possibly can. And 2028, as you said, is the Olympics. Now, depending on what date and month the contract is up, they may want to keep the Simpsons around just for the sake that people are coming in for the Olympics, that they can get their last rides in with the Simpsons before it goes down. So I think honestly, between after Fast and Furious to 2028, I think they're going to do something else prior. But after 2028, then they're going to remove the Simpsons and do something with it.
And that's very possible. And I can definitely see that happening. My question to you is, and maybe to Wizard as well, is that space that he was hinting at, what could that be? Could that be, the expansion to Harry Potter, which has been rumored for years? Could it be a different IP altogether? Could it be
Or for the land that's adjacent to Wizarding World, or for the Simpsons?
the land adjacent to Harry Potter?
Harry Potter. I thought that there could possibly be an expansion to Wizarding World, because of the amount of land that's there, and it's an easy transition. Plus, there's a lot of other Harry Potter attractions that they can add to that. I mean, they can add Hagrid's, they can add I don't know if they would add Ministry of Magic. I don't know. I think that's a pretty big show building.
Yes.
But they can do whatever. They can add something to Harry Potter, or they can add a little mini land. But I think that would be more marquee for an expansion for Wizarding World. For The Simpsons, I feel like that's going to be a smaller version than of Dark Universe, because you already have the Universal monsters walking around that area, not of The Simpsons, but in that upper part of the lot anyway. You have the Bride of Frankenstein, you have Frankenstein's creature, you have Dracula. They're already up there. So you can implement them right there in the land without any kind of disruption.
That is 100% true. The only thing I say about Dark Universe, though, is I almost want to see that IP go in a different spot on the lower lot to have a bigger land out of it. Because the biggest thing that I'm being told by people that have already been to Epic, I think even including yourself, was that Dark Universe is very small for what
it's the smallest land, believe it or not.
exactly. So I'm just saying, to try to kind of squeeze it between Harry Potter and Fast and Furious, does that really do justice for monsters, or would you like to see it in a bigger footprint on the lower lot, which it would have more land, which could possibly be or mean more attractions, more characters roaming around, more shops, more restaurants, and more experiences compared to trying to shoehorn it into the Simpsons area?
I think if they were just to do the Monsters Unchained,
Oh, sure.
they could get away with the Simpsons. If they wanted to make it a little bit bigger, where they add in um, the tavern, where they add in the burning windmill, even if they wanted to add in the curse of the werewolf, or if Epic Universe ends up expanding um, Dark Universe with the water ride with Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Yeah.
then I can see them putting it into the lower lot. It just depends on what Universal, how they want to approach Dark Universe into Hollywood.
Oh, sure. And again, I'm not dissing the idea to put it in the Simpsons area. I just think with Epic Universe having a smaller version of it, why not have a superior version of it on the West Coast and
Oh,
entice
absolutely.
people to come here and
Well, and
then
especially because the classic Universal Monsters, that was the birthplace. Universal Hollywood was the birthplace of those films.
oh,
That's what
100%.
basically kicked off the whole entire company. And it's like you have to pay tribute to them. It's
Sure.
like it's a sin of why they even removed Back to the Future when Back to the Future was literally filmed there.
Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of blasphemy in a way.
Well, see, let me ask you something because, a lot of people have kind of backlash on the idea of adding more Harry Potter, at least to the Hollywood park. Let me ask you if they did do that. Okay, let's say they build Dark Universe on the lower lot, and they use the Simpsons area to kind of expand Harry Potter and that footprint, possibly build another attraction. To be honest with you, they can either go two routes. They can either build the Green Gots attraction,
Mhm.
or they could build the Ministry of Magic attraction. The reason why I say that is because both areas in the Harry Potter films kind of have that aspect when you're watching both those type of scenes in different Harry Potter movies. You always have guest flow going in those areas where they're showing that. So you always have people walking in the Ministry of Magic in that whole area, and you got people walking down Diagon Alley to the Green Gods Bank. That would be in my personal opinion, that would almost be like a perfect spot because that central hub right there where the Simpsons sits, either you're heading towards the studio tour, which again, I don't even think the studio tour is going to be there much longer. I think it's going to get relocated
I
eventually.
do too. I
And
do.
then and then off to the left, you got the area for to go down to the lower lot. So my prediction is they put either one of those attractions where the Simpsons show building is, and they justify it as kind of guest flow of people walking in that area that kind of replicates the Harry Potter movies when they show those two different areas in the Harry Potter films because you see guest flow.
Yeah, I think in my humble opinion,
Oh, sure,
um, I can see the Ministry of Magic if they were to go that route. I could see the Ministry of Magic or honestly Hagrid's because
sure.
they both are the Ministry of Magic right now is a hot ticket at Epic Universe.
Oh,
It utilizes the state-of-the-art technology. Hagrid's is a thrilling but kind of like family kind of coaster. It's pretty much evergreen. I feel like with Escape from Gringotts, I feel like that is beyond its time. I
sure,
feel
of
like
course,
it's kind of dated with the technology that was used back in 2014. Um,
definitely.
so I really wouldn't say now again, I could be wrong, but I
Of-
think if they were to go that route, it would either be Ministry of Magic or Hagrid's.
And to kind of further that point, because when you look at the extended queue of Forbidden Journey, which is the attraction inside the castle, um, the extended queue never gets used. It's basically abandoned and it just sits there doing nothing.
Mhm.
What if they kind of build Hagrid's into that area going down the hill of that area, and they justify it because if you think about it, Hagrid's, when you look at it at um, Universal Orlando, it's kind of like in that wood forest type
Mhm.
elements,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what we're seeing with the extended queue of Forbidden Journey that never gets used.
Yeah. They very well could. They could literally kinda keep the overall theme of that and just build around it, because
Yeah,
it would fit in perfectly. Because yeah, it's supposed to have, like, that more of, like, mystical forest that goes into the forbidden forest, and you're flying on Hagrid's motorbike, and yeah, it would totally fit. Yeah, I could
because if you look at it, when you go into that area, and I'll take a picture when I'm there on Thursday, if not Friday, I'll take a picture of it because if you look at the entrance of Hagrid's at Universal Orlando, how the kind of like the pitch type entrance, and then the walking path entrance, as you like to call it, the walking path, right in the middle of that structure for the entrance of Hagrid's, and then you walk into our Hogsmeade, and literally right on the side of the wand shop, right there, Ollivanders, you kind of have that same pitch frame looking entrance. That could be the entrance right there for Hagrid's, right
yeah,
there.
it very well could.
Because it's identical almost. If you look at a comparison side by side, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it very well could, and yeah, definitely take a picture of that, and
I will.
that would be awesome. Now, I wanted to talk about one more um, final topic,
Sure.
and this is kind of a little bit of a hot take right now. Now, this is kind of a little bit out of the theme park realm, but not really, because again, as circling all the way back to what I said at the very beginning of our conversation, studios and theme parks go hand in hand. What helps for the studio helps with the theme parks and vice versa. Now, this isn't proclaiming to Disney, this is more so proclaiming to Universal. So, this is courtesy of Discussing Film. And there's an article on Bloomberg, and they're saying that Warner Brothers has rejected Paramount's first bid to buy the company. And I find that very interesting that it even seems like Warner Brothers could possibly want NBC Universal to take a nab at it, because it just seems like I feel that Warner Brothers, for me anyways, I don't think that it would go very far under the helm of Paramount.
No.
No offense to Paramount itself, but I just don't see them running Warner Brothers that I think Universal would, especially with their plethora of catalogs and characters that they could utilize in Universal. And I'm also wondering too if that's why Universal hesitated to put in a bid from the very get-go. I wonder if somebody tipped them off to say that Warner Brothers, and again, all these companies talk amongst themselves. I wonder if someone tipped Universal off to say Warner Brothers was not aiming for Paramount for the bid, that they might retract it, that Universal said, you know what, we're going to wait. We're going to make Paramount think that they got it in the bag. They'll put in their bid and like, okay, yep, we got we got Warner Brothers. And then they know for a fact how it's going to end. Now, Universal might come in with a sneak attack, put in the bid, and Warner Brothers accept it. So what say you on that? And actually just the whole thing of like where this could lead Warner Brothers and also lead Universal.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start off with the, here's the problem I see with any other company trying to buy out Warner Brothers, because we all know at the Universal parks, Harry Potter is owned by Warner Brothers and J.K. Rowling.
Mhm.
Now, if we look at it on the aspect of that angle, if any other company like Paramount, like Netflix, like Disney tries to acquire and acquires Warner Brothers, what is going to happen with the Harry Potter franchise? Is it going to be another Simpsons situation where we could have
Or Marvel for that matter,
or
because
Marvel?
Marvel doesn't work well for Universal or Disney, because Disney can't build anything Marvel east of the Mississippi, and Universal can't update anything. It has to sit exactly how it was built because both of their contracts retract from one another.
Yep.
So, yeah, I could definitely see that, and that's why I think Universal, it's into their best interests that they do get Warner Brothers, because you're absolutely correct. Wizarding World is what brought Universal back from the ashes.
Yes.
No pun intended, the phoenix rising from the ashes,
Yes.
because they were about to go bankrupt,
They
and
were.
the boy wizard really did them a solid, and that's very true. And now with this new streaming Harry Potter series that's going to be coming out on Netflix, correct?
Uh, I don't think it's coming. It's coming out on HBO Max.
HBO Max. Okay, shows how much I really care for it. But anyway, that but in any case, but it's still revitalizing the franchise in a new way that Netflix or Paramount could utilize it to ruin Universal, because if Universal can't add anything more to it, they have to keep it stagnant, or they may be ending up with a situation where they would have to remove Wizarding World, and that just doesn't disrupt Universal Hollywood. That disrupts Universal Orlando and the upcoming Universal UK park.
Yes, and that would be a very detrimental hit to Universal in general for the theme parks. And you know, think about it for a second. At one point before Universal struck a deal with J.K. Rowling and Warner Brothers to build Harry Potter into their parks, because I could be wrong on this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, George, because you might know more on this. But J.K. Rowling at one point didn't really want the Harry Potter franchise going into the Universal parks. I think her and Warner Brothers actually approached Disney on this.
Correct.
And Disney denied wanting to put that in their park. And as soon as Universal started building the Wizarding World of Harry Potter into their parks, both here in Hollywood and Orlando, that's another mistake that Disney made, because they're like, oh crap, look at this.
So I just want to make just a minor correction. So Disney was already in talks with J.K. Rowling. They did want Harry Potter in the parks. The problem was their vision of how they saw Harry Potter was completely different than what J.K. Rowling saw. Yeah. They wanted meet and greets for the characters, which she was like livid that to actually have the characters do a meet and greet. And then they were going to have like this kind of like walkthrough kind of attraction. And it was, honestly, I saw the early concept art on one of the, someone posted it on YouTube, and I wasn't even impressed. Wow. And for how much of a stickler J.K. Rowling is, despite of how people feel about her personally or politically or what have you, but just as a creative, just like James Cameron, Potter is her baby, and she's very attentive to detail. And when she saw the ideas, they just could not come to an agreement, meet in the middle. So she denied it. And then she went over to Universal, heard their idea, and she was like, yes, that's my vision. Let's go for it. But even to then, while they were building it, she was there every single day. She had her hands in everything. They could not sneeze without the approval of J.K. Rowling while they were building Wizarding World.
Which I'm okay with, because I'm that's the same situation that James Cameron did with the world of Avatar and Animal Kingdom, and probably is going to do the exact same damn thing at DCA in the Hollywood backlot, assuming
and that's why I think, and I know I'm going a little bit off topic, but backtracking a little bit. And that's why, to your point, anything can change at any given time in these theme parks because of how James Cameron is a stickler. For the life of me, I can't foresee him agreeing to putting Avatar in Hollywoodland than opposed to the Simba lot. Something had to be mentioned in that meeting, if a little bit of the green bills came into the factor, of why he would agree to that for how much of a stickler he is. But I was going way off topic, but
No, it's
just to kind of put into the perspective that James Cameron and J.K. Rowling are kind of on that same beaten path when it comes to their pieces of work going
yes.
into another party's theme parks.
Yes, absolutely. And, another benefit, think about it, another benefit for Comcast acquiring Warner Brothers, at least for the Hollywood Park, think about it, because the Hollywood Park is very tiny, it's small. The whole lower lot, about 90% of the lower lot is sound stages. Well, think about it. What's across the street? Oh, that's right. Warner Brothers and the studio. So if Comcast acquires Warner Brothers, they move a lot of their production, if not a 95% of it, to the Warner Brothers lot, and they start going Donkey Kong on these sound stages, tearing them down and building theme park space. Imagine what people would say if about 80% of those sound stages went away and that was all theme park space. Imagine what people would say. And then, on another justification, you know, with also with Comcast acquiring Warner Brothers, think of the characters and the IP base they can bring to their parks, especially for their seasonal events, for Christmas, for HHN, which is a huge one. Then you got FanFest, and kind of reverting back to Harry Potter. Think about it. Think about how much money Comcast would save not paying Warner Brothers and just paying J.K. Rowling's royalties, how much money they would save by owning Warner Brothers. Think about that.
And really, and to your point, the fact that the Warner Brothers lot is literally right within visual distance of Universal Studios Hollywood. And as you mentioned, that there's like they have all backstage area. They have all the filming streets and everything. They literally in time could eventually connect Universal Studios Hollywood with Warner Brothers and make it one big gigantic lot and make an ultra huge backlot tour.
Oh God, yeah. You're talking about you're possibly talking about maybe getting rid of, well, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to say it for myself, getting rid of the studio tour, at least on the Universal lot, and moving it to the Warner Brothers lot. Imagine what the footprint, erasing that from the Universal lower lot, could do for the theme park aspect for Universal. It would
Very
be,
true. Or again, they could. I mean, I know this would never happen, but this is
oh,
just me
sure.
being ambitious. That they literally just connect the tissue
Yes,
between Universal and Warner Brothers, and you just
yes,
have a long stretch of road that they just take you down the tram because they could park the trams down there, they can revert them back. They would literally own it. And honestly, I know right now Wizard says it's not in the cards and OG says the same thing. And I'm not referring to right now, but I'm saying down the road, everything has a price tag.
yes,
Everything does. I still feel in time Universal will be owning that golf course.
yes. I personally think so. Eventually, it will happen. The Sorry to say it, and I don't mean to get any what political, but the way our California leaders are running the state into the ground, and the way they charge for utilities, for food, for necessities, for taxes, for all that type of stuff, and then even the film industry is leaving California. Think about it. You
It's
know,
really true. They're not even filming on the sun stages anymore. They're
no,
actually traveling cross country, out of country to actual locations rather than actually film in a soundstage anymore because it's too expensive.
yes, and that's what I mean. The California leaders, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people are going to give backlash on this, but I don't feel they are the best representatives for the state. And eventually, just like they have been, look at the numbers we've seen over the years. How many people have left this state?
Well,
And
and
how mu- and,
I think too, not even really just with the state of California. I mean, you're absolutely right. But if you even just look at Hollywood in general,
oh yeah,
Hollywood is in a discrepancy right now with
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
So,
because
like, they kind of go hand in hand.
yeah, because most celebrities, not all of them, but a lot of celebrities have left California. Look at Mark Wahlberg, for example. He publicly came out and said, I cannot live in the state of California. I cannot live in Hollywood. I cannot justify raising my family in Hollywood anymore. It's just gone the hell in a handbasket. And look at where he is now. He lives in was it Las Vegas, and he he's living the time of his life, and he's still doing movies, but he's living in a different state where him and his family live a better life because of it.
Or even Lindsay Lohan, she moved out to the Middle East. That's where she met her husband. And it's like she still obviously does. No, she's back in the spotlight now. She just
Sure.
got done doing Freakier Friday with Jamie Lee Curtis and everything. But
Yeah.
it's like you can live a Hollywood lifestyle, but not actually live in Hollywood, so to
Yeah.
speak.
So, and again, I don't mean to get political because I don't want to start creating negative comments on this video, but just for the justification, like George is saying, because the golf course across the street from Universal, you can see it from Universal property when you're in the park. Um, at one point, they wanted to buy that golf course. They wanted to expand and make that a second gate. But the golf course, because, the premium memberships and all the houses surrounding that golf course, they voted no.
Right.
So, in return, instead of doing it that way, which would have been better, now they're looking at Warner Brothers, and it all ties back into this comment that Discussing Film said. Basically, Paramount threw in an offer, Warner Brothers denied it, and now Comcast is taking another look at Warner Brothers,
And
and
oh,
justification is there.
yeah. And I think, speaking of that golf course, if Universal acquires Warner Brothers, it's basically going to be sandwiched because it's going to have Universal on one side, Warner Brothers on the other. They're going to All things are going to be happening. I don't think that the golf course is eventually going to want to deal with that headache. And again, I'm not saying tomorrow, I'm not saying next week, I'm not even saying a year. I'm saying way down the road, if it happens to get new ownership or what have you, and they sell it off to a third party or what have you, everything has a price tag. And if Universal ends up expanding with Warner Brothers, they may just have the right amount that can kind of turn their heads and say, huh, that maybe not be such a bad idea. And
No,
then they would literally have the centerfold between both studios. That, can you imagine? That would literally put Universal Studios Hollywood on the map for really being a multi-day experience, because we all thought there would never be a day that Disney and the city of Anaheim would come together and agree. But yet, here we are. Here's Disneyland Forward. So anything's possible.
oh, and you're absolutely right. Anything's possible. But when it comes down to, you know, where the decision making lies, Universal, I'm sorry to say, beats Disney 9 out of 10 times. It's just for
Well,
the
I
value.
guarantee you, if Universal gets the catalog of Warner Brothers,
Oh, it,
This is where Disney needs to stop with their live action reboot and sequel bullshit, because they're really going to have a competition, true competition on their hands, that they better start pulling out new and original material, because Universal would then have the IP driven materials that they don't have to worry about third party sponsors. They don't have to worry about um, renting renting out IP from other companies. They would literally own it.
Exactly. Now, I want to ask you because I think the last time we talked about this subject, this was on Orange Go 55's channel. Um, I don't know if it was you or him. It was probably Orange Grove who mentioned this. Would with Comcast and Warner Brothers being as big as they are, would the government, okay, would the federal government allow this merger to happen because you got two conglomerates coming together and merging?
Um, yeah, I don't think it would. I don't think really the government would really have. I don't think would give too much of an issue on it. Sort of like how Disney did the 1.7 billion dollar acquisition for Fox.
Yeah.
I think honestly, this we're pretty much seeing history repeat itself with that. If Universal gets into the ball game to try to purchase Warner Brothers, this is going to be the same level. I feel like they may not spend 7.1 billion,
I'm
but
sure.
I think just history in the making of two very well-known studios merging into one. I think this is going to be on the same level as Disney acquiring Fox.
Well, let me ask you this. The first question I have, would they be okay with Universal with Comcast being a monopoly? Because acquiring Warner Brothers with all the IP it has, that's the first question I have. The second question I have is with all the IP, you know, what detrimental does this do to Disney, especially Disneyland? Let's say their Halloween event, okay? Because Disney has Oogie Boogie Bash, Universal has Halloween Horror Nights, and there is a lot of IP that's horror based that Warner Brothers is affiliated with or has the rights to. What would this do to Disneyland? Would Disneyland just at one point just fold and say, "Hey, Oogie Boogie Bash is no more. We cannot compete"? Or do you think there's still going to be a market? Because, like you said, with Comcast may possibly going to make history, and again, it's not confirmed, but possibly making history like Disney did with Fox. Could this crumble Disney in the way of their Halloween event with Oogie Boogie Bash, where HHN just becomes a monopoly because everyone wants to go because now it's like a free reign of IP they can explore.
I think honestly it would definitely boost it up in popularity, but I still think Disney still holds its own cards that, for the younger generation, and to have something still for the Halloween season towards Disney. I still think they would have a market for that. Whether it's Oogie Boogie Bash at DCA, or if they move the Halloween party over to Disneyland, depending on what is to become of DCA, at least till after the expansion projects. Also, too, to even OG's credit, that he said that over in the Simba lot they could possibly add villains over at DCA because it can give more of a stronger vibe, because they utilize the villains for Oogie Boogie, and they could have a whole entire section just within that land itself for the party. So I still think there's potential there for Disney. I do think, however, with the acquisition of Universal purchasing Warner Brothers, I think eventually that's when Superhero Island done at IOA would become originally what they were sought out to do. And it was supposed to be two areas combined into one, which was going to be Superman and Batman's Gotham City.
Yeah, and I can see that. And one thing
But I also think too that they would have to finagle something out with Six Flags.
yeah, yeah, with Cedar Point,
Yeah.
but Cedar Point, I kind of feel, you got, how can I put this? You got the Hulk. which is basically Universal Comcast if they acquire Warner Brothers, going against Cedar Fair, which is kind of like what's a good analogy I'm thinking of, which is like um you or me trying to fight the Hulk. It's almost like it's almost impossible because obviously the Hulk's going to win every single time. They have the bigger edge, he has the bigger edge, and he has the strength to overcome almost anything. So I kind of feel if it got to that point, Universal has the money in the world to make that happen. Now, I have to ask you if, I'm saying if, and I'm going to talk about this on Orange Grove's live stream. I think it's a live stream or a recorded video tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure on that yet.
Mhm.
But, one of the things I want to ask you, since you're not going to be there tomorrow, is if Comcast does buy Warner Brothers, what is this going to do to projects that were already announced for the Universal parks? With the expansion of Universal Hollywood, with new attractions, possibly new lands, the hotels, and then everything going on at Universal Orlando with Epic Universe expansion, with what they're doing in IOA. Then you got the UK park. Then you got the Horrors Unleashed experiences expanding. You got the kids parks. Is that going to kind of slow those projects down to fund and buy Warner Brothers if they do acquire it, or do you think it's not going to affect it at all?
Um, mm, I think it really just depends. I think it depends on strategy of how well that they utilize it, because any little hiccup can loosen a cog and make things seem that it's going to be better, but the grass would not be greener on the other side. So I
Yeah.
think they have to still be very cautious and very creative when it comes to that,
Yeah,
especially
no.
when a lot is on the line.
Yeah, no, 100%. Um, I kind of feel I kind of feel that Universal is kind of like a risk taker, and I think what we're gonna see if they do acquire Warner Brothers is that all the other projects they have already started with and already announced in the public forum, they aren't gonna slow down. I think it would be in bad taste if they do. Um, but again, like you said, it's strategic. It's how they play the game.
Right. But
Is
yeah, I don't think they're afraid of the obstacles. They're not afraid of the challenge. They'll find a way to get it done for sure. But they just
ex-
have to do it. They have to do it smart.
exactly. And again, I'm crossing my fingers. Seriously, I'm crossing my fingers that Comcast and Brian Roberts does pull the trigger and buys Warner Brothers out, so that way they don't have to jeopardize another company, possibly Disney, possibly, Paramount, possibly Netflix, or any other company acquiring Warner Brothers and possibly getting forced to either stagnate the Harry Potter franchise in the parks or have to be forced to get rid of the Harry Potter lands, attractions, elements in the Universal parks, which would be a major, and I mean a major, negative impact for Universal if that happens. So I think at this point going forward, I think, like you said, um, Comcast knew, they waited, they kind of knew in the back of their mind that Warner Brothers was going to deny Paramount's first offer. Now, is Paramount going to go for a second offer? Who knows? Maybe, but there's no um, underlying reason if Warner Brothers is going to even accept that offer. or they are going to accept it. Who knows? There might be stipulations that maybe Warner Brothers didn't like hearing what Paramount had to offer, not just money wise, but stipulations on what they wanted to do with the company. You know, maybe there was reasons that's why Warner Brothers denied it. Maybe if Comcast puts an offer in, which I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Comcast at one point did try to put an offer in, didn't they? And they got denied.
I think so. That was a while back. So I mean, maybe Warner Brothers thought about it, or maybe Warner Brothers still doesn't think Universal deserves them. Maybe they have someone else in mind.
Maybe.
It's very hard. Maybe they want Netflix. It's very hard to tell at this point. But we definitely will keep an eye on it for sure. And
Definitely.
any breaking news, anything that gets announced or agreed upon with all of these companies, whether it's Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, Netflix, Paramount, whoever is involved, we will definitely be boots on the ground to bring you guys all the hard hand breaking news for sure on all our social media platforms. But conductor, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. That was a very nice, stacked, lengthy conversation that I always have with you. I love having you on Hollow Gelato, and I definitely want to have you back on again, especially with all this stuff on the horizon, with all these studios and theme parks and what have you. But again, I want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. And it's always a pleasure and such a fun time hanging out in Hollow Gelato and talking theme parks, talking studios, talking rumors, expansions, acquisitions, the whole 9 yards with the one and only lovely, crazy Disney Italiano from Hollow Gelato. I love him. He's a brother from another mother. We love discussing this stuff. This is our passion. We enjoy it. But like George says, I'm Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on YouTube and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on Instagram at theme_park_conductor. You can find me on X at Theme Conductor. You can find me on TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1. And you can find me on YouTube every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we have amazing guests like the one and only lovely Disney Italiano George from Hollow Gelato, Orange Grove 55, Tommy Toon World, and so many others as we break Universal, Disney, studios, rumors of the parks, the Halloween and the up and coming Christmas seasons, and we kind of get a little nuts. If you watch our 3-hour live stream that we did on Conductor Sunday live stream, I think the last 30 minutes, I would say, kind of got a little spicy.
We definitely went off the rails there.
We definitely went off the rails. So that is up on my YouTube channel now. So definitely go check that out. But again, it's such a great time talking about this stuff. And I have to tell you, folks, I have a 9-to-5 job, not literally, but I have a full-time job. And I consider this my kind of vacation, talking about these things and going to the theme parks and covering all this stuff. And then, like we talked about a little bit earlier, programming note, I am going to be at Universal Studios Hollywood both Thursday and Friday to maybe, and again, rumored, but maybe see the Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift ride vehicles go full circuit on the track as ride testing begins this month, possibly this week, who knows. So if you see me at the park, please, I urge you to come say hello. Want to take a picture? You want anything? I'm there to hang out with you guys, but I'm going to be there all day and eyeballing that coaster.
There you go. And everyone, show this guy some love. He does great work over on his channel. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell on his end. And also, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell on Hollow Gelato, where Abby and I have the scoops on all things Disney, Universal, Knott's Berry Farm, Disney Cruise Line, you name it. Again, we are boots on the ground for in-park vlogs, in-studio vlogs like we just gave you today. And comment down below on anything that we discussed today. Tell us your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? All that we ask is please keep it civil. And this is Mr. Theme Park Conductor. I'm George, the Disney Italiano, host of Hollow Gelato. And as I always say in Disney Italiano fashion, stay safe, stay healthy, stay Disney. Italiano out.